Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is David. My phone number is area code 603-731-6786. If you get stuck, call me. So we're going to set up an Ultimaker 3. It's a 3D printer with a build area of 8 by 8 by 8. It has 2 print heads. The machine comes with 3 nozzles. These are called print cores. AA prints filament, so there are 2 of these to print 2 color parts, and there's a BB nozzle that prints water dissolvable support material. So the machine currently is loaded with an AA and a BB. So we'll load filament and water dissolvable support. Ultimaker is from the Netherlands. They've been around for about 8 years. Their hallmark has been reliability. It was only a year and a half ago that they introduced 2 nozzle printers. Up until that time, they had all been single extruder printers. And they are great. This, even though it's printing, it has a build volume of 8 by 8 by 8, it weighs about 25 pounds. It's very light. So what we're going to do is set this up. If you're on your own, there's a quick start guide if for some reason the whole thing's been taken apart and you've got to put it back together. But Kevin and the team has also printed the user manual. It's really easy to read. There's lots of information. If you get stuck, flip through it, and chances are you'll find almost everything that you need. And if you really get stuck, then you can call me. Okay, so here we go. We have power supply and cord, spool holders. The reason why the spool holder has a cable is because it's got a near field reader chip inside, so it will read the filament that's been loaded. And it's not such a big thing on one machine, but if you have 10 machines, you can connect to all the machines, and then you can send a print to whichever machine has the right combination of filament that you need. Here are 2 starter spools of material. These are small spools. Chances are this is what you'll always have around for the PVA water dissolvable support. The reason for using a small spool instead of a big one is that it absorbs moisture from the atmosphere and then it becomes squishy. Unlike PLA that absorbs moisture from the atmosphere and becomes brittle, so both of them have to be stored in a Ziploc baggie. Okay, so, and our weapons, wire cutters. So whenever we're loading filament, we're gonna cut this on a 45-degree angle, like so. It'll make it easy to load. That's the only reason why we use the wire cutters, unless you need to throw them at somebody. Needle nose pliers, just in case you have to reach in and grab a thread, that's being dragged around. That's the only reason for those. And then a putty knife. So at the end of the print, once it's had a chance to cool just for a minute or 2, if you stick the corner of the knife under your part, you should be able to pop it off. And if you really get stuck, then there are clips here, very easy. 2 clips in the front, push them back. The clips in the back are just spring-loaded. The plate comes out, it's just glass. Keep this clean, so once or twice a week, Kevin's gonna buy you a trial-size version of Dawn Original Blue dish soap. 2 drops under the sink, wash it like eyeglasses, dry it, put it back in. But also, if you print a big part and it's not coming off easily, just run it underwater just for a moment and then set it down, make sure that it's nice and cool, then you should be able to, you can get it off any way that you want. Plate goes back in. Once you start using the printer, after a week or so, you're gonna get all sorts of little chips and threads, so do your best to keep the printer clean. A little paper towel and wipe it out. It'll help everything run. It won't, things won't get caught on the gears, the shafts, but there's nothing in, over the course of the 10 weeks, there's really no maintenance that you're going to have to do. So, here we go. Step 1, we'll start with the power cords. right, so these are assembled, and maybe before we plug the printer in, we're going to attach the first part of the spool holder with the near field reader cable. So, tongue in the back, and chances are this is not something that you're going to have to do, but now you know how it all works. The cable plugs in underneath. Very simple. There's an icon that shows you how it should be positioned. Goes in pretty smoothly. There's a channel here to be tucked in. There's even a little cover here, but we're going to leave that off. Okay, so spool holder is on. Now, the plug. So there's a dimple on the bottom. You can see the dimple spot here. That goes in. And just so that we can see that we're lighting up. So the boot up will just take 15 or 20 seconds. If the cable, we've seen it that if the cable isn't plugged in all the way, this boot up will go on for 10 minutes. You know there's a problem if we don't go from Ultimaker to the main menu in pretty short order. Okay, so now we can start loading the filament. So main menu, print, material, and system. So we'll go to material. And the first material that we load is number 2. So we load them in reverse order. And if you look on the print head, you can see materials 1 and 2. So we're loading 2 first. And you'll get used to spinning the machine around back and forth. We're loading PVA. So again, we're going to cut this on a 45-degree angle. And the reason for that is that there are 2 pinch rollers in the drive that work like this. If this is cut to be a point, it'll just go up into those pinch rollers more smoothly. Or more better if you want to know your teachers. Professors and instructors. Okay, material. So here we go. We're going to load material 2. We choose load. So there's change, load, and unload. We'll choose load. Place the spool on the holder. So we say yes. And then in a moment, it'll recognize. So it's recognizing that PVA is on the back, and PVA, again, is being used in the BB print core. Once it recognizes the material, what's happening on the drive is that it starts turning. So you can see this little cutout. So that's turning slowly. So the material works best if you thread it underneath the cable on just this side, and then we're aiming for, here's the feed hole in the underneath. And then with your fingers you can just feel the wheels grabbing. One wheel has teeth, one wheel is smooth. And just in a few, over the course of the next few seconds, you want to watch the material coming up to the feeder tube. And once it's up about a ½ inch, we'll take another step. Okay, it's just coming, just emerging. So we're up about a ½ inch or so, and on the front, we're going to confirm. And what happens is that it's fast forwarding and driving the filament all the way to the nozzle. And that's a sound you'll get used to. Once it gets to the nozzle, within the next 60 seconds or so, the hard filament will be turned to goo, and then we'll start extruding out of the nozzle number 2. So when it starts coming out, what you want to look for is a nice, clean flow. So when it starts, it might be a little squiggly. After the printer's been used for several weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and has done a lot of work, the inside of the nozzle can get a little bit dirty. So don't hesitate, don't worry about letting this go for 30 seconds or 40 seconds or for a minute until that flow is nice and smooth. If things really get dirty, there's an option that's covered in the manual. It's called the atomic cleaning method. And that has to do, so we take the feeder tubes off, we put in a little piece of filament, we heat up the print core, then we turn the temperature down, and once it's cooled off, then we give it a tug and we pull out all the corroded material. And it's been very effective when a nozzle gets a little dirty. So it has begun flowing. And it's always a good idea. Just let it go for a few seconds. And once you're convinced that it looks great, we say confirm. And that's the end of loading nozzle 1 or nozzle 2. Take this out. And now on the dial, we're aiming for return. And now we're going to go to material 1. We select it. And now the machine is in motion. We're going to say, we have to choose load. And now things are in motion to load material number 1. So we're going to be loading PLA, silver PLA. I've already cut it on a point. And so on the back, now we have part 2 of the spool holder. It has its own feeder, just to keep the two materials separate. So through the hole, inside, and then before we put this on, back to the front, I know there's a lot of swinging around here, right? Place the new spool with the installed material on the spool, on the holder. So, and we go. We say continue. And once it recognizes the material, then the drive will start turning. So it will spin this way. Up into the feeder. And with that sharp point, you should feel the wheels grab the material pretty quickly. Yep, it's loading slowly. Just being sure that it's threaded through the bottom of the spool holder. Down here. Good. Then we watch. When it's a 1/2 inch, we go back to the front and confirm. So the filament's coming up. We're good. Oh, by the way, so back to the drive system. If something should go kaplunk and you want to get this out, that's what this button is for. When you squeeze this button up, it separates the rollers. And so the material, you can just easily pull the material back out. So now to the front, and we just say confirm. And the material is fast forwarded all the way to the print core. So once the material starts extruding, we'll watch it, we'll look for a good flow. Then we have one more step, and then we're on to printing. There's a camera inside the Ultimaker 3 printers that connects to your Wi-Fi network, so you can track the progress of your print through the camera. Hey, we just heard that in printer number 1, the part sounds like it's finished. So we can take a walk over there. The bed has gone down. That's a mushroom, believe it or not. This is water-soluble, water-dissolvable support material holding the mushroom cap up. So we'll let that cool for a minute, but once we take another break from the other printer, we'll come over here, remove that, take a look at it, and then we can get it into some water and it'll begin dissolving. It's 2-hour dissolve. Okay, so the filament has just begun extruding. So the Ultimaker 3s can print ABS, PLA, CPE, CPE+, nylon, polycarbonate, a semi-flexy but very durable material called TPU 95A, and polypropylene, which is the material that all your water bottles are made out of. So this looks good. We have a nice clean flow. It's silver, but it practically looks clear. We say confirm. There, and we've got filament loaded. So the last step on the initial setup is that we're going to run a process called active leveling, and that's where the machine will take readings from the leveled bed and add that into the software so that when it's printing, it'll print very precisely because it's taking into account exactly where the bed is in all corners and all areas. So we want to go back to return, go back to the main menu. Return, and we're going to go to System and Build Plate, select, and we're going to go to Active Leveling. And the machine takes over, we'll let it run. This will take just a couple of minutes. So active leveling, when it's done, the machine will then ask you, when do you want to run this? Do you want to run it always, before every print? Do you want to run it once a day, once a week? We, in our office, have all our machines set to never, which means we only run active leveling when we want to. If you set it to never, which is what I recommend, anytime you change the print cores, you should run active leveling. When you change materials, it would probably be a good idea to do it. It's probably a little bit of overkill, but it only takes a couple of minutes, and it will ensure that the machine knows where every corner of the build plate is. So while it's running its active leveling, I can tell you a little bit about the bed. You can see there are springs. There's 2 springs in the front, and then there's 1 spring in the back. So you can't see the spring, but you can see the screw that controls the spring. So this bed is set so that those springs are almost at the end of their throw, or they're squeezed almost as tight as they can go. So and the way that it's set is you tighten the screws all the way, and then you back it off about 1.5 turns, which means, 1, 2, 3 little quarter turns, so that this lip, there's only a whisker of space as you're looking directly at it between the top of this lip and the bottom of the aluminum plate. That is the accurate setting for the print cores to work. So now it's going to ask us, how often would you like to do this? We say continue, and here are our choices. And we're going to, from all the choices, from always to after startup, automatic, which is always, we're going to say never, which means we have control of it. So now we go back to the main menu. And we're going to insert. So you can send prints wirelessly over the Wi-Fi, or you can put in a flash drive. So we're going to put a flash drive, turn to print, and we're going to choose something really quick to start, if we can find them. And we're looking for